What's happening? I'm Mike Willett with Redline. This session is going to focus on the initial setup of an NT5000 switch. If you are brand new to this switch platform and want to learn more about how to get started, you are in the right spot. All right, let's get started. When you first take the switch out of the box and power it up, connect all your cables and all of that, the easiest way to get started is to open a web browser and enter in the default IP address of the switch, which is 192.168.1.201. Since this is an initial setup video, if you are not as familiar with networking concepts and you need the reminder, don't forget to change the IP address of your computer to comply with the subnet of the switch. So in order to do that, you can go into your Windows menu here, select Ethernet, change adapter options, and then you can see I'm using Ethernet 2. So I already have this window open. You would scroll down to your IPv4 settings and hit properties. As you can see, my computer has the IP address of 192.168.1.100 with a 24-bit subnet mask, which in dotted decimal is 255.255.255.0. The default IP address again of the switch is 192.168.1.201, and the subnet mask would be the same. So what we can do is we can go into the browser here, hit 192.168.1.201 and hit enter. Once you enter that in, you will get a sign-in screen here. So by default, this switch is right out of the box, factory settings. You would log in by using admin with no password. You would hit sign in. And once you sign in initially, it will prompt you to create a new username. For security reasons, this switch will not allow you to use the basic login account of admin. You have to use something more secure than that. So I'm going to use just something called test, and I'll just give it a password. Okay, and then I hit confirm. I hit confirm. Okay, so now I get this screen here. I can begin setup. Save the settings, and now it's going to prompt me to log in with my new username and password. Once you create that new user, you'll be logged into the switch. The first thing you will see is the switch dashboard. Now, depending on how you plan to utilize this switch, this will obviously determine how you navigate the settings. If you are looking to do a basic setup, it might make sense to use this quick start menu here. So under the quick start menu here, you have a couple options. You can change or add user credentials and the security level, which we would discuss in a different video session. You can change the IP address of the switch here. Now, one thing that you'll see with the DHCP enabled, I want to mention this because by default, DHCP is enabled as a backup, meaning there is a static IP address on this switch, as you see right there, 192.168.1.201. But when I have DHCP enabled like this, if the switch detects a DHCP server on the network, it can default to using that. It can grab a lease from the DHCP server and use that IP address. So for me, in my example, I'm just going to disable that. So that's one thing that I'm going to do in my initial setup. And then under the ports tab, you can do a couple things here. You can give the port a label or a description. You can change the PVID. Now PVID is the port VLAN ID, which we'll discuss in a different session. And you can change your speed and duplex credentials, or you can administratively enable or disable the port as well. You can also import a config file. If you already have a saved config with a template of settings saved, the config file is also readable. If you want to open it into a text editor, you can actually make changes to the config file itself. So when you're finished making changes to the switch, you want to make sure you save those settings into memory. You'll see under the System tab, an icon will show up that will prompt you to go under the System tab and save those to the startup configuration. So when I save these settings, they will now be stored into memory. So that is what the quick setup menu has to offer. The quick start settings might provide you with everything you need to configure the initial setup of the switch, but in the event that you have more requirements to configure at the initial startup, I have included additional parameters in the initial setup session 2 video, so check that out. Thank you, see you next time.